Piz Bernina is the highest mountain in the Eastern Alps, the highest point of the Bernina Range, and the highest peak in the Rhaetian Alps. It is also the most easterly mountain higher than 4,000 meters in the Alps, the highest point of the Swiss canton of Graubünden, and the fifth most prominent peak in the Alps. Piz Bernina is located south of Pontresina and near the major Alpine resort of St.Moritz, in the Engadin valley. The mountain was named after the Bernina Pass in 1850 by Johann Coaz, who also made the first ascent. The prefix Piz comes from the Romansh language in Graubünden. Any mountain with that name can be readily identified as being located in southeastern Switzerland. Geography. Piz Bernina is one of the few isolated Alpine 4000ers and the most topographically isolated mountain of Switzerland. It is the culminating point of a group of summits slightly lower than 4,000 meters, mostly lying on the main watershed between Switzerland and Italy. The only other summit higher than 4,000 meters is L'Espedla, a minor prominence south of the mountain, which is also the highest point on the Italian side of the massif. The summit itself is located on a perpendicular chain starting at L'Espedla on the border and finishing at Piz Chalchan, composed also of Piz Moritz and Piz Boval. Piz Bernina separates two glacial valleys, the Chiava Glacier on the west and the Moritz Glacier on the east. The waters flowing on both sides of the mountain end up in the Inn River running northeast through Engadin. South of Piz Bernina, the watershed separates the drainage basins of the Danube and the Po River. The summit of Piz Bernina is the culminating point of the Danube drainage basin. Politically, it is split between the municipalities of Engadin and Pontresina. Geology. The rocks composing Piz Bernina are mostly diorites and gabbros. The massif in general is also composed of granites, notable on Piz Corvac and Piz Palu. Most of the range belongs to the Austro-Alpine nappes, a tectonic unit whose rocks come from the Appulian Plate, a small continent which broke away from Africa before the Alpine orogeny. The Austro-Alpine nappes are common throughout all of the Eastern Alps. Climbing history. The first ascent was made via the East Ridge in 1850 by 28-year-old topographer Johann Wilhelm Coaz and his assistants, the brothers John and Lorenz Rhaetian. On the 13th of September 1850, shortly after 6 a.m., they left the Bernina Inn with the measuring instruments. They traversed the labyrinth and headed to the Fu or Klkrastgasse, a col between the Krastgasse and Piz Bernina. They reached the summit at around 6 p.m. Johann Coaz wrote in his diary, "At 6 p.m., we stood on the ardently desired lofty peak, on soil that no human had trodden upon before, on the highest point of the canton at 4,052 meters above sea level. Serious thoughts took hold of us, greedy eyes surveyed the land up to the distant horizon, and thousands of mountain peaks surrounded us, rising as rocks from the glittering sea of ice. We stared amazed and awestruck across this magnificent mountain world." In 1866, the South Ridge running from L'Espedla was climbed by Francis Fox Duckett and Fay Brown with guides Christian Almer and Ander Martin. They started at midnight from the Alpes on the Italian side, and reached the summit at 11 a.m., descending to Pontresina only a few hours later. The first attempt to climb the northern ridge, the Biancagrat, was made on the 12th of August 1876 by Henry Cordier and Thomas Middlemore with guides Johann John and Caspar Maurer. They successfully reached the top of the ridge, Piz Alv, but when they saw the chasm lying between them and the summit of Piz Bernina, they considered it to be beyond their powers and returned down the Biancagrat. Cordier later declared the gap to be absolutely impossible. Exactly 2 years later, Paul Garsfeldt, accompanied by the guides H. Grass and J. Gross, reached the summit via the Bianca Grat and accomplished the first complete ascent on this route. The first winter ascent was made on the 15th of March 1929 by C. Colm with guides C. and U. Grass, to win a bet worth 200 Swiss francs. Hermann Buhl reached the summit of Piz Bernina from the Beauval hut in 6 hours. He then descended the North Ridge in only 15 minutes, establishing a record. Tourism. Piz Bernina is the highest summit of the Engadin region and lies close to the resorts of St.Moritz and Pontresina. The mountain can be seen from different viewpoints with the use of ski lifts from Diavalez-Piz Corvacha-Piz Nair. The Bernina Railway connects St. Moritz with the southern Valparaiso through the Bernina Pass. Climbing routes and huts. The normal route starts from the Refugio Marco e Rosa, located at 3,600 meters above the Fuorclicrastgasse, and follows the route taken by the first ascensionists. The North Ridge, called the Bianca Grata Crastalva, is the most well-known and attractive route to the summit, and is much more difficult than the normal route. The route starts from the Chieva hut in Val Roseg, accessible from Pontresina. The Bianca Grat itself starts at the Fuorcliprevlusa and leads to Piz Bianco. To reach the summit, the Bernina Gap, which repulsed Cordier, Middlemore, Jorn and Maurer in 1876, has to be traversed. Other huts in the area: Refugio Carrete Brianza, capacity 32 beds, 3 places in winter room. Refugio Marinelli Bombardieri, capacity 220 beds, 15 places in winter room. Chamana Beauval, capacity 120 beds. Chamana da Diavaleza, capacity 234 beds. Panorama. Deaths on Piz Bernina, 1970. Rollo Davidson and Michael Latham.